The secret to success without hard work is still a secret. If there's little risk, there is likely little reward. I give you Brent Edwards, everybody.
Thanks, Wendy. Good morning, BNI. How good is it to be back together again and see some faces we haven't seen for a long time? I'm really loving being here at Rose Hill. As I was saying before to someone, I've lost a lot of money here, but I've never actually been here before. So that is a good thing. So is it okay that I talk BNI stuff today? Because we are at a BNI conference, a lot of BNI members, yep. Okay, so the people who aren't BNI members, you probably, you might not get all this, but some of those things might be okay. So what I really want to talk about is BNI and growing our chapters today. So how lucky are we first? We've had 2 years of craziness. And what's been our one constant through that? Our BNI meeting each week. It's kept a lot of us sane, it's kept a lot of us together, it's kept a lot of us in business. And how lucky are we to be able to actually draw on that, meet with our peers, cry on their shoulders, some people did over that time, and have that support group week after week. It was our one constant why crazy premiers were locking us up and bringing us out and making us wear masks and all that sort of thing. So we're really lucky. So you may have heard we do this little podcast called BNI the Australia Story. Bea down there, she's the talent, she's the superstar. I got to tell you, I'm really humbled here because I'm around like professional speakers. I'm just know a bit about BNI and I do a bit of training, that's about it. But as with our podcast, Veronica's the professional. Stand up, V. If you haven't met Veronica already, don't worry, you will meet her by the end of the day. So we're really humbled by the support we get for that, sharing Australian stories, and it's all part of the BNI 3+1. And the +1 is sharing stories. So we love to share your stories, and I love getting the feedback from what we do. And it was Veronica's idea in the first place. And she wanted to do something. I said, all right, make it happen, we'll do it. Really? Okay, so we did it. And we got the support of BNI and BNI Australia. So we're really humbled to have that support from you guys going forward. So this guy here, he started BNI a long time ago. He's younger than me. Someone asked me, how long have you been in BNI? I worked out 264 months or something. So it's a very long time. So, you know, just over 23 odd years ago, BNI came to Melbourne. And I actually found out about BNI by chance. And I'd like to bust some myths right now. One of the myths I've always heard is no one buys BNI from a brochure. So I was working in telecommunications, I was managing a store, and I used to come in the morning and manage the store with a co-manager. And my co-manager used to do the afternoon, we were open late at night as well. When I went in, I used to come in with a newspaper on the early train in the morning into Melbourne City, Bourke Street. I used to get the newspaper and brush off all his coffee cups, used coffee cups, all his rubbish into the bin that he used to leave. In amongst that rubbish, I found a BNI brochure. What's this? That looks interesting. I'll have a read of that later. Later on, I get to have a bit of a read of it, and I see this brochure, and there's this organisation that has a system for bringing in referrals. I love getting referrals. You mean it's organised? So I ring up the guy on the brochure, I say, hey, I'm in, straight away. Problem was, there was only about 2 chapters in Melbourne then. So we were opening up a chapter in the south of Melbourne. Sorry, we were opening up a store in the south of Melbourne in the southeast. And I said, listen, I want a chapter down there. Is there anything down there? He said, there won't be, but there will be in the new year. I said, all right, call me when you're ready, I'm in. So come early in the next year, I get a call. We're starting a chapter. I was in the core group for the 3rd chapter in Melbourne. What I found was I was getting quality referrals from quality business people, getting recommended to people through there. It really worked for me straight away. We launched that chapter with all of 12 members. Weren't we awesome? We got a chapter up and running. You know what, we still did good business out of it back then. But we launched with all the 12 members. And when they picked the leadership team, they said, who wants to be vice president? And everyone took one step back and I was left standing. So I became vice president. The other myth I like to bust out of that is employees aren't good BNI members. Because guess what? I never owned that company. I was an employee. I was responsible for bringing in business through that company, but I knew the benefits of bringing in that business through BNI. So you see that show Mythbusters? Myth busted from that. Okay. Who remembers one of these? This is how we communicated then. As VP, I had to fill in a sheet of paper, photocopied paper, with the PALMS report. And I had to go and collate all the referral slips, which were carbon referral slips, and write them all on the report and write who was there and fax it to the executive director so he could keep track of who was there, who was attending, etc. Thank you for closed business. There was no such thing. Believe it or not, BNI used to just wing it. They used to think, oh, average referral is this amount. We've done this much business around the world. So that really didn't come into around 2004. We started actually counting that. So even applications, we had to help the membership committee send through the applications. They were in carbon, and guess what? We had a 6-month membership. What a disaster that was. But we didn't know any better and we pushed through. And what I'm saying is, and what I'm trying to get to is, BNI members now, you've never had it any better. Apps, the technology, BNI Connect, BNI Learning, or BNI Business Builder, or BNI University, I always go back to that. BNI Business Builder, you know, all this technology to help us achieve success. We do things a lot better now. We don't have 12-member chapters. I actually got to the stage where we wanted another chapter in the area, and I wanted to put a staff member in down the road. And I said, when are we going to start a chapter down here? I said to the executive director at the time, I need one down here, I want to put a staff member in. I don't know anyone there, I'm from Sydney. I'll help you start one. Okay, I know a lot of people down there. So I helped start the second chapter in the area. We got up and running, we got more business out of it. How good's this? The executive director at the time said, oh, you need to send me an invoice. I said, what for? Oh, you started a chapter, we pay you commission. Do you want to be a director consultant? Oh, okay, how many more do you want started? So we went on like that, and a few chapters down the track, I started one with 20. Man, I was a rock star. But we've moved on a lot from there. So today I'd like to talk about opportunity, and we've got a lot of opportunity at the moment. Frederick mentioned yesterday in our meeting, if we were a store, we got a lot of stock on the shelves at the moment for people who can actually come in. So I'd like all the BNI members in the room to stand up, please. Or if you're a member of a chapter, I want you to stand up. I'd like you to sit down if you're a member of a chapter of over 50 people. There's a few. Please sit down if you're a member of a chapter of over 40 people. Wow, you really need to hear my message today because I want to make you a lot of money from what we do. All right, everyone can sit down now. Thank you for that. So, there's some things we've found over the last couple of years in our region where, and you know, I'm the first to admit, I've been doing this for a long time. I haven't done it really well for some of those years too. But we learn a lot over time and we get better at things. And there's some things we've learnt without our region, throughout our region, where you know some chapters are better than, you know, make more money than others. And I'd like to make your chapters and your membership more money. And this is a big opportunity we've got for today. So, who knows those super ads? Compare the pair. You know those? Same super fund, different, yeah, that sort of thing. Anyway, I can't take on that guy. It was Tom Croydon from Blue Healers or something who does the voice. But what we've got is two members, same business type, different chapters, member A, member B. And just with those compare to pair, any financial planners in the room? Don't you hate them? Hate those ads? Okay, so let's look at member A, member B. Member A purchases a membership. Region's a little bit different. I'm just saying it's $16.30 per annum. So does member B. Okay, member A pays meeting fees, about $15.84 per annum. So does member B. Member A attends BNI meetings, about 96 hours. So does member B. Are you seeing a pattern here? Member A completes one-to-ones. They're doing one per week, roughly about 48 hours a year. So does member A and member B. Member A completes 52-hour CEUs. So does member B. Member A is in a 50-member chapter. Member B is in a 30-member chapter. What we've found in our region is member A's average seat value in their chapter is $103,000. Now, there are variables and outliers, okay, I give you that. Our region is a suburban region, part country as well. But member B, her average seat value is $52,000 per year. As you can see, both these guys are doing the same amount, paying the same, doing the same amount within their BNI group. One's getting double, more than double the other. So as I was going to actually walk into your business today and say, if I could show you, if you could spend an extra 10 minutes a week and not change anything else you do, not pay any more money, there's no catches, spend an extra 10 minutes a week and I'll double the income that you're getting from this business, what would you say? No catches, nothing. Yep, absolutely. No brainer, you'd go for it, wouldn't you? Well, we can actually do that within BNI, but more of that later. I'd like to share some stats with you that came out from BNI Global. Member inviting habits. 65% of all visitors were brought to BNI by 15% of our members. Would that ring true if you're over your stats in your chapter? And only 15% of members brought 5 or more visitors. So if we're thinking power of one, how many visitors probably should we bring a year if we're doing power of one to stay in the green for BNI members? 12, yeah, one a month, okay? So only 15% of these members actually brought 5 more visitors. But this is a really damning thing. 45% of members never invited anyone to a meeting. And that shocked me. And then I thought about it and I thought, yeah, it's probably right. Is there a reason behind that? Is there a why? Don't they know how? Or is there an underlying factor in some of our chapters stopping them? And that's what I want to talk about today. Some chapters get to a point, and I've seen it over many years, they get to a point in their growth where they reach a roadblock. They can't take it any further. They seem to set themselves a goal and they get to a certain point and then lose a couple of members, go back, and then gain a couple of members, go up. And there's some roadblocks. And we always wondered why that happened until we broke through some of these roadblocks in our region. And you get back to, when the 4-minute mile was broken, it took a long time to break. And then when it was broken, it's doable. Everyone broke through. So everyone worked out that they can do it and found out how to do it. But we worked out there's 3 main things within a chapter that might be stopping you growing any further. You get to that point where it's an absolute roadblock and we can't get any more. And I'd like to share those 3 things with you today. So 3 things that are stopping your chapter growing and your members making more money is they might have a bit of a lack of chapter pride. There's a lack of an abundance mentality, and your members don't know what the visitors are buying. They don't know the visitor buying process. What motivates a visitor to want to be a part of your chapter? We're going to break that down today. So let's look at lack of chapter pride. If members aren't proud of what they're in, it's like giving a referral. If members are unsure of something with you, they're not going to refer business to you to their best client. Same with your chapter. If there's something not to their liking or something just in the back of their mind or something they cringe a little bit about or something just not right, they're not going to invite their best people. And when they do invite, they're going to do things. They're going to do things like cold call because they don't want to risk their reputation. So There's a few actions we see in amongst chapters that could be causing this as well. And first one, you get clubs and cliques in chapters. Would everyone agree sometimes in chapters you get little clubs, cliques? Yeah. They're turning off people bringing visitors to your chapter. Unfortunately, in some, we've got bullies. We've got people who, own the chapter, they pass a lot of referrals, they do things their way, the rules don't really apply to them, and they make people jump through hoops. And people don't want to actually bring someone into the room to meet that person. We had a person in a chapter who was really, what we found out eventually, good referrer, stats were really good, brought a lot of business to the chapter. We had women leaving the chapter. We heard that he was disrespectful to the women in the chapter. We couldn't send anyone there ourselves, let alone the visitors bring anyone. That person left the group, that chapter grew by 8 in 3 months. That was a roadblock. People who are really over the top. Now, I know Stan spoke about flaunting, your flaws, but sometimes in a business environment, you can go a little bit too far and people go, I don't want to introduce something to that. Another chapter we had, we couldn't get over 40. And there was a couple of real eccentric people in the chapter, and they were really confronting. They liked doing weekly presentations that really confronted the members. And you'd sit there and go, I don't know about this, especially while I'm eating breakfast. This is not good. What we found was when they moved out of the chapter, the floodgates opened again. This was the catalyst of actually getting past the roadblock. People didn't want to bring their best clients into a room to sit through that. And sometimes we're engulfed in it and we're a part of it and we don't even realise. And sometimes it takes someone from the outside saying, hey, this is not right. Do you guys know what's happening here? One of the great things about BNI is all the members become friends. One of the worst things about BNI is, and that comes in a meeting. People get comfortable with each other. They use it as a sounding board. You get BMWs. Now what BMWs are in the chapters? Bitches, moaners and whiners. They use that as an opportunity to have a session about that and complain. These people are stopping your chapters from growing. They can be there, but the BNI meeting, the weekly meeting, is not the place to do it. I like to think you need to run a BNI event, and more of that later, but if you're running an event, you keep those things out. If you're running a meeting when everyone's comfortable, those things creep in. This will stop your chapter from growing as well. This is what I like to see, recognition done right. This is positive reinforcement in chapters, and some of your chapters will be up here as well. I like to see people really, pump up their tyres, and not just the people who are high performers, because you know what? Our high performers on the stats in the traffic lights aren't always our best role models. I'd like to see people rewarded, catch someone doing good, catch someone improving, catch someone doing something that, they've done something great in the chapter and the scoreboard doesn't show it. If we can do that, it's really positive reinforcement, and people want to be a part of an organisation that does those sort of things. Recognition done really right. On the other hand, you don't want to actually, berate people who aren't performing in that realm on the opposite side. We had also had this chapter where we had the roadblock. The previous leadership team thought it was a great idea, and one of our members at the time told me about this, that they were doing this. I didn't even know. They'd share the weekly alert report every week with the whole chapter. So the message they were giving, which is a management tool, the message they were giving to everyone in the chapter, you haven't done this. You're not a good member. How demotivating is that? By the way, if anyone's doing that, stop doing it, please. All right? So, pride in the chapter is really key here. And if people haven't got pride in your chapter, they're not going to invite their best people along. The next one is lack of abundance mentality. And there's scarcity and abundance. And the more things we can get in the abundance column, the closer you're going to getting to where you need to be. Unfortunately, smaller chapters the scarcity mindset is there because there's less referrals to go around and people are trying to grab what they can, okay? So scarcity might be not enough to go around, abundance more than enough to go around. Scarcity might think others are competition, where if a chapter's got an abundance mentality, others are possible referral sources. Think small and avoid risk, or take on the risk and think big. Also, too many people to get around to. Oh, the chapter's getting too big, I'm a little bit uncomfortable. How are we going to get around to everyone? Look at all the referral opportunities if it's abundance. They can be entitled and fearful, or thankful and confident in abundance as well. The more you give, the more it costs if you've got a scarcity mentality. The more you give, the more you get with abundance. And a scarcity chapter will have category hogs, an abundance chapter will have category specialists. You ever notice when you go away somewhere and you say, oh, we're going to go out to a restaurant, or even in your own community, and you go to the restaurant area and all the restaurants are all together. Everyone knows that? They all cluster together. And usually even in your local community, if the pizza shop and the fish and chip shop, they're all together and they usually set up next to each other. They're never really outlying. Aren't they competition? They're all food. Put this in a BNI context. Everyone who comes in, if they're really close, BNI members think they're competition. And the first thing when someone walks in the door that might be close to that competition, and members say, you can't join. Oh, hang on, I'm just here to have a look at a meeting. But what sort of thing does it actually pass on, and what sort of PR does it pass through as well? There's a word amongst this, and it's called agglomeration in economics. Try saying that 10 times. Okay, and that's when all those restaurants actually cluster together, and the amount of people it draws, there's enough business to go around for everyone. And large BNI chapters are exactly the same. The more people you draw, the more business there is to go around for everyone, because everyone comes into the room bringing their network with them, so you can actually tap into that network and get referrals. So it actually gets easier. The last thing I wanted to go in this is not knowing the visitor buying process. Now, there is a visitor buying process in our chapters, and there's a lot of steps, okay? So what is the visitor buying in BNI? Who can tell me? Yes? You and your chapter. They're not buying BNI. They're buying you and your chapter running the BNI system. Okay? And if you run it well, you've got a good chance that they want to come on board. So the BNI meeting, as I said before, is a weekly event. Who wants to go to another meeting? Who wants to go to an event? Is it a bit more exciting? If we're running an event, is it a bit more upbeat? Is it a bit more razzle-dazzle? Absolutely. All right, successful groups run great events, and they treat it as a weekly event, not just a meeting where we're there under sufferance and getting together. And what you want to get to the point where your members of your chapter look forward to the weekly event as the best part of their week. And if you can get to that point, you are running a great event, and they will bring their best contacts along as well. And if your group impresses those visitors, they'll want to apply. So in a 1 to 10 step sales process within your BNI group, I like to think your visitor needs to be an 8. I've got good news for you. It's no secret. Guess where it is? In your training for leadership teams, BNI Business Builder. All the secrets are there to do this. So let's look at what affects the visitor buying process. Remember, we want to get them to the point where they say, I want to be a part of this group, here's my application at the end of the meeting. A lot of people say, how do we close visitors? You don't. They've made their decision by the time they get to the visitor orientation. If you run a great event with positive reinforcement, they want to be a part of it. If it's for them, it might not be for everyone. And if it's not for them, that's okay. So let's say the visitor is a 0 when they walk in the door. They could be a minus, a -1, a -2. Why might they be a -1, -2? They've heard something negative, read something negative online, heard from someone who, oh, BNI never works. BNI is a cult. That's one of the things we shouldn't say in meetings, by the way, as well. All right, so visitor host team is there and organised. Positive reinforcement, a step on the ladder. A visitor walks in, there's energy in the room already. All the members are there and they're really prepared for them. That's positive reinforcement. People wearing name badges, they're organised. Don't you find it's easier to say hello to someone if they're wearing the name badge? Sorry, I've just taken mine off for being up here. We'll be back on later. There's a seat for them in a great position. Never put a visitor right at the end of the table or right on the corner. Get them in the middle of the action. Make a great impression. There's a trade sheet there with everyone's details. You know, this is all basic stuff. But you know what? Why aren't we doing it? There's a trade sheet there with everyone's details. I had a visitor go to a chapter one day. She'd been to BNI groups around the region. She'd never seen a trade sheet. She was blown away by it. She said, oh, it's fantastic. I've got everyone's details. I've got the right notes on them. How long's this been going? Well, every chapter should be doing it. Okay. The president is setting a great tone and has got personality. You know what? Not all our members are good presidents. You need a president to set the tone, have great personality, run a great event. If a president is softly spoken or not, out there a bit, they're not going to run a great event. It's not in their DNA, and they're probably uncomfortable actually being in that role. They're probably better off doing something else like, Secretary Treasurer or VP. Leaders are introduced. It shows that we're organised. This is an organised organisation. Recognition of members is key, as I said before. New members are recognised. There's people coming on. This is okay. Anniversaries are recognised. People are renewing. There's obviously nothing wrong with this because people are paying to go around again. And renewals, and they're recognised up the front of the meeting, and they read through the code of ethics, which is our vows and our commitment to each other. It's like getting married. It's like a recommitment. Vice President Membership Committee reports celebrate achievements. They think this is a great business unit. Referrals, lots of business is passed. As you can see, what's happening to the steps? We're getting close to the point where we get to the 8 if we do this well. Testimonials, members' testimonials of their time in BNI. What we're doing is sharing great experiences of what BNI has provided. So if we get to the point at the top and the follow-up, they really want me. We hopefully get to the point where this and member contributions add to the positive reinforcement that this is a great group and I think I can do business with them and I want to be a part of them. What affects the visitor buying process negatively? What actions in the chapter can work against it? As I said before, the bit of self-interest. Cliquey groups in there, okay? People not networking, sticking with, all their mates and the like. Airing dirty laundry in the meeting. It happens. Someone who thinks it's really funny to tell an off-colour joke, that works really well. Sexist remarks. I've heard plenty of them over time. They're not great. No one wants to hear that in a business meeting. Those cringeworthy actions from people who are really over the top and just go that little bit too far. Obviously the BMWs. Presidents skipping parts of the agenda. They don't know the reason why it's there. Every part of the agenda's got a reason. You know what? Dr. Ivan Miser wrote basically the same agenda on a typewriter 37 years ago. We're still using it, and every part of it is there for a reason. Category hogs. Giving the bad impression when they come in, oh, you can't join, that person does that, when it's not even their specialty. In our region, chapter size, when we go from 30 members to 50 members, every new member adds 150K to the thank you for closed business in our region. As I said, there's outliers, some areas do more, some chapters do more, but everyone who comes in the room and submits an application going there is worth 150K a year to that chapter in business. Plus, when a chapter grows from 30 to 50, the seat value doubles. So remember the compare to pair. Same input, same amount paid, same time taken, different results. And the really only difference is the chapter size. But we need to get our house in order before we actually do that. Who actually invites someone around for a dinner party and doesn't clean their house first? Anyone here? You do it, don't you? You invite someone along to impress them for a dinner party, what's the first thing you do? You clean the house, you vacuum, you dust, you don't leave dirty laundry lying around. Clean up, if you've got dogs, you've got to clean up all the dog hair and all that. We need to do the same with our BNI chapters if we want to grow and want people to be a part of them, and we want the best people, not just randoms off the street. So, we need to get over the lack of pride. We need to make our chapters proud and our members proud of what they're a part of, and they'll bring their best people. And if we sort this out, they will. We need to get out of that scarcity mentality and have a mentality of abundance. And we need to know the visitor buying process and why the visitors are actually buying your chapter. So the 10 minutes a week, that's 10 minutes a week you can take out of your time to focus on inviting people for the next 2 weeks to your chapter and just work on it for 10 minutes to find those invitations. Every business plan we do with chapters on inviting to get them to 50, which is platinum. And you notice I'm not talking about going to 100 today, because our average chapter size across Australia is low to mid-20s right now. I'm not going to tell you build your chapter to 100. It's not a really smart goal. We'll talk about that a little bit later. But 10 minutes a day to work on bringing someone over the next 2 weeks. All of our chapter business plans that we work out for chapters, taking into account their conversion, amount of visitors brought, to get to 50, it only works out that a person has to bring a visitor once every 2 months on average to get to 50 out of that whole chapter. Is that a bit easier than even one a month? It's around 0.6 in every one we usually do. So 10 minutes to just focus on actually, okay, who can I bring today? Who can I help change their life by introducing them to our BNI chapter? This is what I do in my spare time. And you can make a lot of money out of motor racing. You just got to start with even more money. And don't ask me about last weekend at Bathurst. It was a disaster. But there's a lot of disappointment over elation, because you lose more races than you win. But a great part of the race weekend is when we qualify the race car. And that's when we go out in the session and we need to go against the clock, and it sets the grid for the race. And you have to really be on it, and drivers really love it. It's that time, it's just, you're not racing against other people, you're racing against the clock. You do it well, you start up the front of the grid, or even get pole position. And I've had, I don't know, probably about 9 of them or something. They're not easy to get. And but if you do it badly and you end up down the back of the grid, and if the track's really hard to pass on, you've got a lot of work to do in the races to get back up the front. So a lot of things need to be right. And before we go out, we need to have the suspension right in the car. We need to have the wheel alignment right. We need to have the tyre pressures right. Tyre pressures in a race car is a really finicky thing, and it's a black art to get right. We need to have enough fuel in the car to make sure we're not carrying any more than what we need, because fuel is weight, and weight is time. There's a lot of things, touch points we have to touch. We have to make sure the aero's right. We have to make sure everything's ready to go, and the driver has to be right on. And the driver has to push that little bit harder than they're really comfortable with. And that's a really good buzz thing. Sometimes you fall off the track, but when you get it right, it's great. And all those things have to come together to actually get the result we need. Why am I talking about this? Your BNI groups are exactly the same. Being in a BNI group's like spinning plates. And I see chapters go, we're going to focus on this month. We're going to focus on this month. And they forget about the other things, and they drop the ball, and the plates break. You need to have all those things working. You need to have all those plates spinning. One of our successful chapters now, who has, before I get on that, who has chapter success meetings? Yep, fantastic. Integral part of your success. One of our successful chapters started doing weekly leadership team meetings straight after the meeting, a weekly leadership team huddle. They're working on the business. They're saying, okay, what do we need to do this week? What do we need to follow up before we come here next week? They're working it out. It's only 10, 15 minutes after the meeting, but they know it's time well spent because they're on top of what the chapter does, getting through. So they're keeping the plate spinning. They're making sure no stone is unturned. So you really can't just focus on one thing. You need to actually have those things spinning around you. You need to have a functioning leadership team who's actually all over that sort of stuff. Because if you have one weak link, your chapter's not going to get pole position. Another thing I'd like to talk about today is goals and setting goals for your chapter. Setting goals for your chapter is really key. I saw a study where a written down goal had 45% chance of actually achieving what they wanted to achieve if it was written down and constantly referred to. How many of our chapters put our goals in our chapter trade sheet up on our slideshow and remind our members each week of where we want to be, where our goal is? I'd like to share a bit of a story with BNI Flyers. They had a really specific goal that they worked with us for last year. They wanted 53 members in the green by October 1st. Good goal? Do you think it was specific? You think it was measurable? What about achievable? Okay. Realistic? They did it. What they also did was they asked for an incentive. And their incentive was, if we reach this goal by this date, we would like to do a deal with you. I said, what would you like? I said, we'd like to donate to a local charity. So we did a deal that if they reach that goal by that date, our region donated $2,000 to a charity of their choice. Guess what? They reached it. They did it. And they monitored it and they showed it through as well all the time. They kept on top of the business and they achieved it. And it was time-based, realistic. It was a smart goal. And really publish your goals, get it out there so everyone is on board in your chapter, so they know where you're actually going to go and what you want to achieve. So that's the end of my presentation today. I'd like to thank you very much. I'm very humbled to be actually asked to be up here and present in front of you guys. I love BNI. I love what we do for people, love how we change people's lives. That's my motivation. I'd like to change more people's lives, and I'd like you guys in your chapter to change more people's lives also. So thank you very much.